Welcome to the launch of N.Monks Opinion. This is a new online event from Media.Monks. This is where we discuss digital marketing topics in order to uncover quick and actionable insights. And we are kicking off today with a special Ask Me Anything episode about NFTs. My name is Adam Remsen, and I'm very pleased to be with you today and with all of these panelists who know a lot more about NFTs than I do. Michael Litman, Rachel Noonan, and Dan Lewis. And they're going to be taking on this very talked about subject today. I can't wait to get started. I see we have over 120 people here already. I thank you all for joining us. So, before we begin though, I want to remind everyone that this episode will be available on demand soon after we finish today. You can look for an email from us with a link. If you like what we discuss here today, feel free to share it with your friends and your colleagues. I also want to encourage everyone here to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit your questions to the panel. That's what we're here to do today. We're here to answer your questions. So no need to be shy, no need to wait. Your questions are anonymous, and we want to hear from you as often and as soon as possible. So, if you've never experienced an NFT before, you can do it right now. We have a POAP. This stands for a Proof of Attendance Protocol, and it's a very basic NFT to help get your feet wet. In an email that we sent you about 30 minutes ago with a link to join this webinar, there's also a link to download the POAP app to your iPhone or Android device. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. You just tap the mint button. You put in the secret word, which is Monks NFT, all lowercase, one word, and boom, you got an NFT, and you can check it out. Success, WAGMI. WAGMI stands for, in case you don't know, this is big in the crypto community, we're all gonna make it. So for those of you that don't know much about Media.Monks, we are a digital-first marketing and advertising services company that connects content, data, digital media, and technology services across one global team built from the bottom up. Our business model is inspired by the connectivity and flexibility of technology APIs. A single P&L model gives our clients seamless access to a team of multidisciplinary digital talent organized across 57 talent hubs in 33 countries. We approach digital media, advertising, and technology in a way that adapts to the changing needs of our clients. We are a new idea. These are just some of our esteemed clients. We work with 8 of 10 of the most innovative companies in the world. If you want to reach out to us or get connected with our sales team, you can reach out to media.monks.com/connect, and we will chat you that link right now. So let's get to the topic at hand. NFTs are weird. We just need to say it. They're weird. People are paying millions of dollars for images that are identical to the images you can have for free just by right-clicking on your mouse. And they're paying top dollar to dress up their avatars in designer sneakers. The more questions you ask, the stranger it gets. So for right now, let's not get wrapped up in the art world or the strange things that rich people do with their money. Let's just get down to basics. An NFT is the ownership of any digital thing. This is as basic as it gets for NFTs. Forget the fungible and the non-fungible and the blockchain and the Ethereum. We might get to all that stuff later, but this is what an NFT is at its very core. But this is where it gets weird. The money. The huge sums of money make us question its value. Like when an artist named Beeple sold his art as an NFT for $69 million. It put him in a category with only 2 other artists that have had art sell for that much: Van Gogh and Monet. and people's alive to spend the money. Or when an Indonesian student accidentally becomes a millionaire by selling just a series of selfies as a joke. Or when an 8-bit drawing called CryptoPunk sells for almost $12 million at Sotheby's. Or somebody else who paid $1.3 million for an NFT of a clip art of a rock that you can have for free on the internet. All of this is really hard to get our heads around. You may think people have lost their minds, but have they? NFTs, if you break them down to the most basic functions, and forget about the millions of dollars and the lonesome apes and all of that other stuff, there are 3 important qualities that NFTs exhibit. They can create value, they provide exclusivity, and they live in a virtual space. They can have value, they provide exclusivity, and they only exist in virtual space. So the biggest question that I hope that we can answer for you today is, what can a marketer do with something that possesses all of these qualities? Well, get your questions ready, and I see some of them coming in already, and thank you. Because today we have 3 experts to provide the answers. So, starting with Dan, if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your current position at the company, and welcome to all of you.
Thanks, Adam. My name's Dan Lewis. I am the Strat Director at Flux, which is the fashion and luxury category team in Media.Monks, based out of London. I have a kind of fashion luxury background. Sounds strange to say, but lots of cultural strategy, lots of insight work. And I think most importantly, though, this current subject is becoming increasingly part of my daily work in the last 6 months. I think at Flux, we're quite lucky in that fashion and luxury brands saw the utility and the synergies for their business model very quickly. So the conversations have been going on for quite a while, and we've been working with some big brands to help them unpack and develop Web3 strategies, NFT strategies, just help them get some thinking. So expert might be a push. I'm definitely getting exposure to the space, and I'm within my team. I think I've turned into something of an evangelist. There's lots of eye rolls. People are getting bored of hearing me talk about this stuff, but it's exciting, and I'm really excited about this technology. So I hope I can contribute something useful today, help people out.
My name's Rachel. I'm a strategy director at Jam3. We are one of the partners at Media.Monks. We lead on the innovation side, human-centered design research to help inform innovations near and far. So super excited to be here. My background is in arts, entertainment, and technology. My background ranges from working in the entertainment industry, film specifically for many years, and then in technology with a focus on media in the open space. So I've worked actually in the government side on, what does open media look like? And then also all the way to the consumer side in terms of, how do we harness the new digital landscape in a way that maintains value for artists, which is, the burning question right now with this world of NFTs. So I'm excited to chat with you guys about it.
I am Michael, creative strategy lead here at Media.Monks in the London office. And I'd say my lens of the world is really immersing myself in emerging trends at the intersection between brands, tech, culture, and commerce. So for me, NFTs hit across all of those. I've lived and breathed the Web3 world, I'd say, for around the last year now, being a part of DAOs, creating and collecting NFTs personally, and can't get enough of it. My wife bans me from talking about it at home because I just talk about NFTs so much. So I'm happy to have an outlet to talk about all this stuff with you guys.
Yeah, I know your wife reached out to me. We're going to have to do this once a week, she said. So, so I see questions are pouring in, which is great. I love the engagement. I'm going to be selfish, and I'm going to ask the first question. So I want to ask, why do NFTs even exist? it has to be more than just for games or for ridiculous prices on art. What is at the core, like what are the conditions that allow them to thrive right now?
Okay. I can have a crack, I suppose. He says. So I think it's interesting, like you say, is it more than just games and pictures and JPEGs? And I think, despite the fact that I've been doing little else but evangelizing NFTs to sort of fashion brands for the last 6 months, I think thanks to last year's NFT gold rush, I still found my thinking getting kind of snagged and stuck on those initial use cases of NFTs, which is obviously art, digital collectibles, which are all super important and revolutionary in their own way. But I think, my brain still goes to, they're just insanely priced JPEGs, and I think really, if you are sat here thinking the same thing, it's, the cognitive dissonance is real, it's crazy. But I think, really to understand why an NFT exists, I was thinking about this earlier, we do have to understand, I think, sort of 3 things vaguely, being, we did say not non-fungibility, but I do think non-fungibility, fungibility, smart contracts, and I think the introduction of ownership and scarcity to the digital economy, which I didn't really realize up until 6 months ago didn't actually exist. I thought it's quite a strange thing to get your head around, but we never really had digital goods. And so like a non-fungible token is essentially, it's a unique crypto token that represents non-interchangeable metadata, that's stored on a blockchain. It's not very exciting, but the fact that it's non-interchangeable means it's non-fungible, which means that it's provably unique. And that provably unique part is really important, because anything that is provably unique can have value assigned to it. It can accrue value, and it can be traded and it can be sold. So basically, it allows markets to sort of, I don't know, be birthed around them, and obviously a fungible token is the opposite. It's interchangeable. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're fungible in so much as if I have the 18th million Bitcoin or the 3rd Bitcoin, it makes no difference to me. They're the same thing. Whereas obviously an NFT is uniquely identifiable, and I care very much which NFT I'm getting, especially if I'm parting with a lot of cash,
So there's a question actually that's come in on the Q&A here that says, how safe are they? Can they be stolen, hacked, or lost? And and as far as just speaking to the ownership part that you just mentioned, can any of those things happen? Can they be hacked?
I'm not sure.
Absolutely.
If hacked is the right word, but they can certainly be stolen. I mean, people get them stolen from their wallets all the time. There are exploits that are being figured out, but I actually think that's probably more a sign of the maturity of the market right now. People are finding ways to kind of part others from their very expensive blue chip NFTs. But the ownership I speak of is just simply the fact that you can now prove ownership of a digital good. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you've got to have something to steal in the first place, right? And it's the fact that now you can do that, and then just a smart contract, that thing that no one talks about, but that's, to me, that's the most important thing of an NFT, so that's the self-executing contract, it's sort of with the terms of an agreement between a buyer and seller that's just directly written into the code. It's like that's the thing. So the agreements exist on the blockchain, transactions are trackable, irreversible. And again, whilst that sounds quite boring, what I've realized now is that's incredibly important. So smart contracts permit trustless transactions and agreements that can be carried out without any central authority, disparate people, anonymous parties all around the world. And I think, when that sank in for me, then the fact that a $21 billion industry seemingly sprung up out of nowhere in 12 months starts to make sense.
Yeah.
And then just quickly, sorry to finish, just like, so the ownership and scarcity thing, once the fungibility and the smart contract comes in, it's that thing that there's now ownership and scarcity, which I didn't realize. The internet obviously solved lots of problems of the physical world, but it always lacked benefits, so ownership and scarcity were non-existent, and the ability to authenticate digital assets was much harder compared to physical goods. And really there was no ownership rights and little value accrual for digital assets. So anyway, just not to bang on, but I think at its core, NFTs offer proof of ownership that's been missing in digital economy. It's so up until now. So I think, yeah, NFTs combine benefits of the digital world, global audience scale, distribution, with the benefits of the physical world, which is ownership and authenticity. And when you have all that,
yeah, something just to build on that is the enablement of all of that to happen is the blockchain. So, whether it's vinyl in, back in the day, or whether it's, a streaming service that was able to digitize a file, the technology is the underpinning for the enablement of it. Without blockchain, it would just be a digital file that could be copied. So that technology is allowing all of this to blossom and to grow. Without that, we definitely wouldn't be here today, which is, you don't necessarily need to be a coder to understand it. Understanding the nature of each of the blockchains, what they represent and their capabilities is a really important feature for people when they're starting to educate themselves about the process.
Rachel, there's a question that came in that I think relates to this. It's an interesting one. It's a long question, so I'm just going to deal with the start of it. It says there's been a recent upsurge in NFTs as digital collectibles in sports. But the purpose of the question, it doesn't really matter so much that it's sports. It says, but do you see an intrinsic conflict between the reason people usually buy collectibles, which is scarcity, and the nature of NFTs, which is indestructibility? For example, and then there's this long example. So basically, what they're saying, like, used vinyl before. I mean, the thing about vinyl is that 10,000 copies of a record get released, and then eventually over time, there's only 5 of them left. And that's the point of collectibles. So how did, maybe just in relation to what you were just talking about with blockchain, maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting I look at form factors not in a malleable sense, but whether it's vinyl or a digital file or interactive art or an immersive film, it could technically be copied infinitely, right? So, and it's interesting that, sports and art are the bells of the ball as it relates to NFTs right now, but music is actually one of the spaces where it's being driven and has been driven earlier, and they've been figuring it out really, really early on. And that industry, has a scale of a product, right? They want millions and millions of copies out there in the world. Scarcity isn't as much of an issue with them, which is just something to think about. But you can control, just like my colleague said, you can control now the actual production and limit the number of items produced in a digital sense, in the same way that I'm buying a limited edition of Pink Floyd. They're only going to make 10. I'm manufacturing that scarcity and that value and that limited edition. It drives me crazy when there's only, X amount of seats at a venue, or I can only get access to certain things, which therein lies, a big part of the value proposition of creating NFTs. So it doesn't happen unless these systems are in place to safeguard and secure. So you need to make sure you have the right wallet. You need to make sure you're ensuring the safety and security of, your good. And you have to trust everybody in the line. So Sotheby's is in, the digital art game. They're a reputable source. You would go to them to, buy and purchase items. There's going to be obviously a huge industry that is going to take advantage of it, create false scarcity and over manufacture things. And there won't be any value in those items. So you have to be really discerning with who your partners are, where you're buying, what you're buying. And there's a novelty to the manufacturing, and then there's going to be the long tail of these beautiful pieces that are going to live in the same way like a Van Gogh will live. It will have significance. And there's this beautiful story I heard about art collectors now creating vitrines, and they're digitizing their art in their home. So they're blurring the lines between the physical and digital space, because it's just like the photos, everybody takes, a million photos and it's sitting in their computer. We want those to come to life outside. So I think there'll probably be a lot of innovation in that space in terms of how do we actually visualize the value of these scarce artifacts that we're purchasing.
That's really interesting. I think that I'd like to get into a little bit of a, for instance, and we have a good question that I'll throw out to Michael, but anybody can jump in. The question is, this person, they work for a CPG company and they make cleaning products, and they sell through a variety of retail partners. So where do NFTs fit in there? This is, I think there have been some, I mean, as Rachel just alluded to, there have been some novelty, some people who have started this, who have tried it out, that sort of a thing. And I think there are some examples of this as well in the marketplace. So maybe, Michael, you can talk a little bit about like, how does an NFT, I mean, forgetting, the millions of dollars for art, how does an NFT work as a practical marketing tool?
Yeah, great question. I think I would, considering I am clearly a enthusiast of the space, I would actually start off with some caution and start off by saying that NFTs may not be right for every single brand out there and every single industry. So that would be a starting point to understand, what does this CPG cleaning product brand want to achieve with an NFT activation, let's call it. And there have been some great examples. So like a well-known toilet roll brand over in the US, they, without any longer term thinking or utility or access behind it, they were one of the first brands to create a branded NFT activation. They got some quick PR column inches and some notoriety from creating this NFT activation as a toilet roll brand. There is some interesting philosophical conversations around, do you want some loyalty and access and utility and all the things that we see from the sort of best practice NFT activations by brands? Do people want that from a brand or product like that? And then I think there's more interesting and relevant ways that brand could have a closer connection with the consumer, maybe through virtual worlds. I think Rachel mentioned previously, if there was a music festival in a virtual world, then maybe there would be more of a seamless connection there. So I think one of the good things that did come out of this toilet roll brand in the US, they did promote all of the proceeds and the profits to charity. So it was a kind of, more of an altruistic angle to this rather than an extractive cash grab. There was a very short-term activation, which we don't recommend. An NFT should be part of a longer-term roadmap and plan where it has unique benefit and value for people to interact with this NFT that wouldn't be experienced anywhere else. So that for me is where NFTs come into their own, where it's not just a short-term thing, it's actually part of a bigger marketing program.
So, I mean, like a loyalty program or, something to reward good customers or something like that. Actually, there's an interesting question. I'm going to send this to Dan because he's in this digital fashion space, or in the fashion space. It says, right now, the NFT/digital fashion/metaverse spaces feel like an invite-only insiders club. Are there any moves being made to increase the accessibility of NFTs? Is accessibility being addressed in these digital spaces? So it's an interesting question because it kind of goes against, it's like rubbing the fur of the cat the wrong way. It's against the very grain of what an NFT is, but also I think NFTs are becoming a bit more accessible. So maybe just talk a little bit about like where we are as far as like giving people some accessibility, but not everybody accessibility.
Sure. I mean, work is being done, of course. I mean, we're early. This is the thing I have to keep reminding myself. It's early. Accessibility is a big problem. Obviously, gas fees, it can be prohibitively expensive, for example, to mint an NFT, to purchase, to keep purchasing, depending on what the model of the kind of the thing is, to gain your entry. But it's all being looked at. I think fiat 2022, I think a big thing this year is going to be about fiat on-ramping. The fact that you can just use a credit card to buy your to buy an NFT or to buy whatever sort of metaverse product. And I think it's important. I mean, fashion, especially from what I can see in terms of garments, digital garments, and digital collectibles, that is going to remain expensive for a while. But I mean, if you look elsewhere in the entertainment industry, for example, I don't know if anyone's aware of the big Matrix push at the end of last year. You know, it was $50 for an NFT. There was 100,000 of them. You could use your credit card. Even I, in my kind of naivety, managed to buy up a couple simply just by, you know, it didn't take much. I didn't have to have a wallet. There's a custodial wallet on the website where my NFT is currently stored. So complexity is being abstracted away, you know, bit by bit, you know, because I don't think, yes, Web3 is on the way, but I think we worked very hard to get to this point in terms of UX and UI and the simplicity and the frictionless experience on the internet. And that's not quite here yet. The invite only thing, I totally identify, and I really understand the sentiment. I suppose we just have to wait and see. You know what I mean? It's like it's not going to remain profitable for people to remain so exclusive and so prohibitively expensive that no one can get in. So I think people are addressing it. The problem with fashion is, of course, their business model is exclusivity, scarcity, you know, luxury products. But I do know, you know, speaking with brands that I cannot name, there are a number of brands who are looking at digital collectibles and commemorative digital tokens that will commemorate events, you know. But I think brands that have an existing fandom and an existing cultural cachet can behave in that way. Not every brand can do that. So not every brand can lower the barrier of entry to the point where they're not doing it just to make some profit, if that makes sense. So am I answering the question? Yes, it does feel exclusive, but I think that's just new technology, new innovations. I think, you know, the barriers to entry are coming down, and I think we'll see more of that this year. You know, Mike, from what I've heard, you know, that is kind of that is the North Star of 2022 for most people and most businesses.
So I have another question. It's kind of on the basic side, but I think it does get to the core of things. I'll throw it out there, which is, why have an NFT instead of something physical? It's a very simple question. Why have an NFT instead of something physical? What are the advantages? Who wants to jump in on that?
I don't think that's really a like for like comparison, personally, myself. It kind of depends what it is. You know, if we're talking about Coachella going into NFTs with their music NFT pass, that is the equivalent, you could argue, to your music ticket to the Coachella Festival. But what the NFT provides through a smart contract is unparalleled benefits that are not just featured on that piece of paper on your ticket. The NFT creates much far-reaching utility, benefits, access, a community around it. And I think the community aspect is really key. And that NFT is also in itself collectible and a tradable asset. Whereas the physical printed ticket, you might frame it or you might, you know, keep it, but the tradability is totally different. So I think that's one example. I'm sure you guys have others, but that, yeah.
I think about magic cards a lot, and I don't trade them, but I have friends that are enthusiasts and they attend events and they're super stoked and they go and they talk and they sell. And I mean, when I found out how much money my friend has in magic cards, I was like, you know, why are you renting right now? You know, you need to sell these bad boys, you know, get yourself some property. But he sees so much value in these cards. And I said, what if these cards were all digital? And you know, still came to a physical event, but you were actually playing with the cards digitally. And he's about 10 years younger than me. He doesn't, his delineation between physical and digital continues to go away. He's a digital native. He lives in a world where he doesn't see the boundaries between the two. So what our job is to understand how to enable NFTs to create value from a transactional and a wonder perspective, right? So transactionally, those magic cards could be 100% digitized. His whole collection could be turned into NFTs, right? Technically, some people still want to pick up a book and some people want a Kindle, right? There's different decisions there, but we need to kind of get out of our own heads in terms of, well, why is it physical and why is it digital? And obviously understanding the utility of each of those. But there's a world where he walks into, his group gathering and all of his cards are projected onto a table, or whatever the equivalent of that is. But it has to make his life better. It has to enrich the experience, make it more practical, or bring wonder and awe in the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember, and it might sound trivial, but that a lot of this is about a flex. My son plays Roblox, and he is constantly asking me for money so he can dress his character up to look like a ninja or a whatever. And I at first was resistant because it just seems like it's something, in thin air, and who cares about it? But then I thought about all the crap that I bought when I was 10 years old, and I don't know where that is now. It's not like I can resell it. It's like, it became garbage then too. So like, it's just something that he wants so that he can show up at a thing. And, like I wanted a skateboard when I was a kid, and I wanted to show up and show off my skateboard to kids. It's the same thing. He just wants to show up in the middle of a lobby in Roblox, and everybody knows that because his character looks that way, or because it can do a certain dance move, or because it can do whatever, they know that he spent the money to do it, and that has a lot to do with what this is about. So that might sound silly, but I think the more you get your head around it, the more you realize it's really kind of what's happening, and it's the future. Let me try to move this into a little bit more of a marketing conversation. Somebody asks, what would be the best use case for NFTs in events and experiences? You brought up Coachella earlier. How did, let's walk people through really, assuming they don't know anything about NFTs, let's walk people through how this really works.
I think that's one of the really big kind of areas that's been investigated at the moment. I think concert tickets as NFTs opens up. I mean, behind that is just this whole new world, this whole new ecosystem, and this whole new opportunity for community and a way for artists to connect with their audience. I mean, not to get too far off topic, but this idea of Web3 disintermediation, the idea now that an artist doesn't need to rent his or her or their audience back off a social media platform. Once your NFT, once your ticket is in that crypto wallet, you now have this bilateral connection with your fans. Do you know what I mean? And you can have that en masse. And all of a sudden, what you have is an incredibly frictionless connection, and you can maintain that connection. Because as Michael said earlier, the way that we can retroactively start affixing utility and access to those NFTs. So if you hold that ticket, it allows you to, get early access to the next concert ticket. It allows you to go to meetups. It allows you to, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, later, but I think concert tickets actually, surprisingly, is one of the most obvious plays right now, especially wherever there is fandom, wherever there's community, wherever it hinges on it, because artists, music artists famously lose an awful lot of money to all the intermediaries. And the thing that a smart contract will do, because it's a permissionless, trustless contract, is that all those people in the middle don't need to be there anymore. So forgive me if anyone listening is one of those people in the middle, but it's interesting what's coming. And I think there, especially, I have been speaking to people, actually. There's some interesting company in Amsterdam that is dealing with just this. And I think what they will do, what happens in this space will start to impact everybody, actually, because I think they'll set the standard on how to build community off the back of the access that this gives, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's very much a tactical enablement tool, and can be a really cool artifact that you can take with you. You can use it really practically in the same way you could, almost like use RFID. There could be, connective tissue to QR codes throughout events. You can unlock experiences. It could be, it can be a badge. It can be VIP. You could do cross promotions with brands. The thing is you should, I don't want to say always be idea or problem forward, but find out what the opportunity is and then understand if NFTs is the right solution to solve that problem, as opposed to force fitting it, which is what some people are doing right now. And, if you want the bylines and you want the press, you can, have huge meetups, and you can do a lot of those really fun novelty-based events. Something to think about also in relation to events, and this is pending, or assuming, most of the people want to be out. Some people are, have been quite happy to be indoors and living in Decentraland and, participating in these immersive events. So you can have all the world, but a lot of people want to touch, feel, and smell. They want to be out, they want to connect. And the physical event space next year is going to be booming. So if you run an event, or you're a brand that activates at events, bring your audience in to start having conversations with them about what the event worlds are going to look like for them in the next year, and then start to look for solves and opportunities and ways that NFTs can bring that to life in a unique way that nothing else can.
Just to build a little bit on that, the fact that for this webinar, we have a POAP ourselves is a signal for everyone that's here, and use the Monks NFT code if you haven't used that already. That is a signifier to people that look at your wallet, and it's a signifier to people that you were there. It's called a proof of attendance protocol. That is it's a sort of cultural moment in time that people can see on the blockchain. So the event space, POAP is one of them. They are doing crazy numbers, and as a sort of indicator of community and connection. That for me is really interesting, because it sort of brings people together, and it has that sort of tribal aspect. And I think for brands to have that really native community feel is what is the spirit of the space in Web3, where it's like you're finding your people. And I think that is something that is super interesting from a sort of badge identity community aspect in Web3.
All right, so a little bit of a kind of a ad hoc lightning round. Michael, I'm going to keep you talking. And let's say I make designer furniture. What's the first idea that comes to your mind for using an NFT? I'll give you 30 seconds.
So Australian Tennis Open, they created an amazing activation, which one was around the NFT tennis balls that they created, but two, they also created the vernacular, the furniture around tennis, where you could then buy, for example, a umpire's chair and sit in that inside Decentraland. It's crazy. But I feel like we're now creating digital virtual objects where you can then show them off in your NFT art gallery, where, for example, on Cyber have the space pods, and these were airdropped to people if they bought a Clone X, which is by Artifact. And these are essentially like virtual art galleries where you can essentially flex your stuff in the virtual world. That for me is like mind-blowing stuff, that instead of having physical art that you put on your walls, you're going to actually be able to buy virtual art to display in your virtual art gallery. That is crazy stuff.
Okay, Rachel, timepieces, your Rolex or Omega or something like that. What's the first thing that comes to your mind maybe that you might do with an NFT?
To evolve the concept of a timepiece?
Yeah, to give, to help people flex, to give people access to help your brand.
I mean, off the top of my head, I would probably look for a partnership. I would connect with an artist specifically. So I would look for NFT specific artists who are doing interesting things in the timepiece space. So I would pull the aperture up a little bit for my particular brand and look at what contemporary individuals are doing in that space. engage them to see how they would imagine my brand in the future, and what does it represent. Oftentimes, especially if you find artists in that space working in a particular area, and you have a legacy brand, there's usually love there, or an understanding of legacy and lineage. I would most likely start with that. I would also do some social listening. I would try and understand how consumers are playing with time, and also my brand, to get a share of voice of how people feel. And I need to understand also if I'm doing something from a novelty perspective, or if I'm making a long play. So you could long term, Rolex or Gégé Lecoultre or IWC. I'm quite partial to IWC. It would be super cool if I could, see it in 3 dimensions, right? And then I could buy it, and then I would want an NFT to accompany that, and that's essentially your certificate of authenticity for that product. And I would want a digital version, and I would want it for my avatar, 100%. And I would want it to be interoperable, which is just available across all platforms. So whatever I look like, I'd want to be able to wear my IWC across the board. Can I afford one now? No. Maybe I can afford a digital one. I don't know. We'll see.
You were hired. You were on fire there at the end. I love that. Okay, Dan. Small appliances. I make blenders and toasters.
I think I'd go back to what exactly are you trying to achieve with an NFT, frankly. Not that you can't. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. There are many brands that are adopting Web3 body language, Web3, that they're taking on kind of behaviors that are more Web3 if there isn't an immediate NFT play to be had. I think what you can actually start doing is almost telegraphing and demonstrating your appreciation for NFT culture and the space, be that, a American alcohol beverage company has recently come into possession of a blue chip NFT, and they have included it in their Super Bowl advert, and they have, and they're using it. It's a noun, and so it's an NFT called the Noun, which obviously has it's a CCO, so it's Creative Commons. It has no copyright restrictions, and so this said brand is now using, Budweiser, I don't know why I keep saying said brand. So Budweiser are now using this noun, do you know what I mean? And they're sort of in derivative ways. So rather than necessarily produce their own, which Budweiser are, this behavior I think is really, really interesting, because it demonstrates your enthusiasm for the space, your understanding of the space, that you're contributing to the space, you know what I mean? And I think that type of behavior, for example, if you're a consumer electronic goods brand who maybe didn't have an initial play to make in terms of sort of culture, but then maybe you become a collector, maybe you start to sort of collect NFT art, maybe you start to demonstrate how you play in the area there. And then what I predict anyway is once you've done that, once you kind of nailed your colors to the mast, then your own projects post that will have a certain relevance, a certain cultural relevance. I think you'll be taken more seriously. So I think there are a number of plays, but I think here what's really important, small household appliances, it's like just wait, it's all right. I mean, don't worry about the headlines. It's like, it's okay, it's really important. One of my learnings so far is it's like, calm down. It's better to show up correctly and to show up with a certain amount of aplomb than just start trying to flog, which is, I suppose, just trying to sell NFTs for the sake of selling NFTs. Because, so I just finished, what's interesting is it's all logged on the blockchain forever. So, your kind of cack-handed mistakes don't just disappear into the ether now. They're there, they're logged. So if you show up with this extractive mentality of just trying for a cash grab, it will be remembered. So,
yes. So we're going to have to stop soon, but I thought I'd just try to get to some of these kind of easier questions, basic questions that I'm seeing coming in. We're not, and I should say to the audience, we're not going to get to everything. We've gotten over 50 questions, actually. I've got, easily over 50 questions. So what we'll do is we're going to answer them and, an email or do a blog post or something. We'll follow up with you after the webinar with some more answers to these questions. We hope we answer, even if we didn't answer your specific question, we hope that we addressed it somewhere along the line, and we're doing the best we can. But we really appreciate the engagement that we're getting. So just guys, we only have a couple of minutes, so just try to keep these to more or less yes or no kind of answers. So someone wrote, can I sue someone using my NFT?
Yes.
Probably.
I love yes or no's. Keep them coming.
All right. Yeah, hold on. Besides it's not so much a yes or no, but it's a quick one. Besides the monetary value, are there any other engagement metrics that provide a context on how big this trend is?
Community size. So you could talk to the most well-known project, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. They are worth a crazy, crazy amount of money for a JPEG of a monkey. But what that JPEG allows you is access to what is essentially like the Shoreditch House of Web3. You're getting a community, a tribe of people that you communicate, congregate within. So I would say community probably outside of monetary biggest in NFTs.
Do you believe there is going to be a time where you would need some kind of credentials, authority, or permission to create an NFT?
Yes.
No, hope not. Hope not, but yeah.
I think, but the thing is we are the best and worst versions of ourselves on the internet and IRL. And what happens is policy has to come and correct our, bad behavior, which sucks, but it's, anyways, I digress.
Yeah.
Doesn't that conflict? I'm not sure I understand it. Is changeable at the address URL, doesn't that completely corrupt the idea? Is there a way to change that system-wise? I don't know if that, let me try it. Which brand NFT activity you think was most successful by far? So is there an example, like some company that did it in a way that you guys thought was great?
Time Magazine. I think Time Magazine right now is an absolute masterclass in sort of building community, utility frameworks, access, like participatory access. And they've leveraged their pedigree, their cultural legacy, like just incredible. I forget his name, Grossman chap, the president of Time, is brilliant. He's on loads of Twitter spaces, loads of podcasts, just basically talking about how much he loves it. And you can see their roadmap, and you can see their utility, Keith Grossman, thank you. And you can see their utility framework on their Discord and on their Twitter. So I think if anyone is stuck for what should lie beyond an NFT, because NFTs, let's be honest, they're essentially going to become a brand passport, and it's up to you to create the ecosystem on the other side. Do you know what I mean? The onus is 100% on you to generate value with and for your community. So you have to produce novelty, you have to produce incentive.
Mm-hmm.
That's how your NFTs are going to become worth something. The idea that someone's going to buy your digital JPEG because you made it, good luck.
Yeah. I mean, some people are even asking the question, like, how do I make money? And I'd just like you guys to talk about maybe the agreed upon value of these things and how that works.
Like anything, really. I mean, like, I'm a 43-year-old man with 300 pairs of sneakers. Do you know what I mean? Which is obviously for me and my therapist. But the point is, do you know what I mean? Like, I know which sneakers I want to go for, and I know why. But it's you have to immerse yourself in the culture. Like, I'm beginning to see how to make money from NFTs, but it requires a lot of time in Discord. It requires a lot of time in understanding the teams that are producing the projects. There's a lot of variables, and like anything, if you want to, I don't know, become an expert in buying vintage cars or watches, you simply have to. But the problem is, obviously, the mainstream media gives us the impression that, and people have fallen backwards into millions, and good for them. But I'm not sure I'm going to be one of the ones who emulates it. But
it's a lottery ticket. At the end of the day, it's a lottery.
Yeah. And those people are the exceptions, not the rule.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? They're the ones that are getting the press and the coverage, which is great because it's putting a huge spotlight. But, the average is that 52% of people aged 15 to 29 are even aware of NFTs, like a survey that was done by Variety, a really good one. Awareness is still growing, and it hasn't been a year, it's been years. And there's probably some people on this call that are like, thanks for coming to our party, because it's been around. We're now starting to, pick up steam, which is really amazing. And people are now understanding the use cases, and blockchain, everything is maturing to the point where we can have this conversation, and a brand can hedge a bet, make an investment, and take a chance. So it really is, if there's value for the consumer, and test and train, again, innovation sometimes is standing still. It's training and getting ready and being ready to actually get out there when you have something that really, really, truly is of value. Or if, again, you want a big splash and you want, to increase brand sentiment, for example, there's a solution for that, right? But making sure you understand what you're doing before you go into it will help you orient and save a lot of money, and maybe not have the lottery ticket be as traumatizing to purchase.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up, but I just wanted to maybe give you guys a chance to do a final thought. If you wanted anything, some lasting thing you wanted people to remember about NFTs, it's not an obligation. This is not a test, but if there was anything that came to mind, please throw it out there now.
I think just from where I'm standing at this moment, any project that doesn't add value beyond owning an expensive JPEG is going to find it hard to court the attention of NFT sort of curious buyers from now on. I think without a strategy for community development and long-term value exchange, a lot of these projects will fail, basically, just through lack of relevance and ultimately lack of interest. Because I think, as we spoke about earlier, when the price comes down of an NFT, people are going to understand they're not buying something that's going to make them millions. So if they bought it for a couple $100, it's like, so what next? What do I get now? And that's up to brands to start answering, and we can help you do that.
Good thoughts. Anything from you guys?
There's a really good case study about Warby Parker, how Warby Parker stopped and waited, and they spent a lot of time developing their product, and they were rushed by their investors, pushed and rushed. You got to go to market, you got to do things, and they waited and they looked at their competitors, and they actually were able to sit and wait for a lot of the pain points for consumers to be solved before they actually launched. Not that they were perfect, they had issues. But that reflection point also of looking at NFTs not individually, but as part of your holistic marketing plan, and understanding if you as a brand have the technological capabilities and the skills internally to activate this. You need Discord managers. You need people that understand the technology. Agency side, we love all of our clients. You don't have to exclusively rely on us. Let us help you skill up and increase the awareness and education internally, so that you can chart the path in a holistic way. And because it's not going to be a novelty. It's not going anywhere. It's just a matter of how you show up.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, you get the final word.
Yeah. So I want to firstly encourage brands to experiment in the space, but also at the same time to exercise caution before doing so, because what we've been saying is it's still incredibly early, but at the very same time, the time is now too. And really, NFTs are assets to communicate who you are, and that's something people have done forever. NFTs will be the scale version of that. People go crazy for blue check marks on Twitter and follower numbers on TikTok. We're living more and more of a digital life. So NFTs are going to be just that next iteration of identity, status, community. So thanks everyone for joining, and appreciate all of the questions.
And I just want to echo that. Honestly, thank you. Thank the three of you. First of all, I consider myself lucky to have been involved with this and gotten the three of you together for this. It's great content and great questions from the audience. Like I said, we'll follow up with everybody. If you have any ideas for an episode, or you have questions, more questions or feedback, you can send it right to me at adam.remsen@Media.Monks.com, and I will get back to you. Thanks again to all my panelists. Thanks to the audience. We will see you next time. What a great way to kick off our first episode of In a Monk's Opinion. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.